We are going to start our technical sessions. Our first technical session will be addressed by Mr. T.B. Chatterjee, Chairperson, Indirect Taxes Committee, the Bengal Chamber, and Chief Corporate Officer, Legal and Corporate Affairs, DIC India Limited. He will address us on key trends in indirect taxes as precursor to GST. Thank you.
উঠানো যাবে, এটা একটু উঠানো যাবে। Good morning, friends. Once again, I have come to discuss few relevant issues with regard to the indirect tax and of course GST. I'll mainly discuss about the GST, but before that, as the organizations have asked me how the indirect tax system transformed its positions to GST, I will just simply touch upon for your information. You all know that in Constitution's Article 246, Schedule 7 is really the genesis of taxation. We all know Article 246 has given a specific power to these states as well as the center towards tax jurisdictions, so that there is no overlapping between state and center. So, both center as well as states have a clear demarcations about its powers towards imposing tax. Without this specific power, no state or central can impose any tax. Like central has the right to impose tax on income other than agricultural income. It is appearing in the central list. So states cannot extend hand. If states today decide they will impose tax on income, that will be considered as unconstitutional. Similarly, states have the power to impose tax on intra-sale of goods that state central cannot extend hand. Whereas interstate, that is appearing in the central list. It is a peculiar tax that legislation is made by the central, but its administrations and revenue goes to the states. So is the case of excise, customs and service tax, which are appearing in list 1, that is central list. So Article 246, Schedule 7 has got 3 lists. List 1 is called central list. list 2 is called state list and list 3 is called concurrent list. In concurrent list, both state and central can extend hand, but if central government comes out with any specific legislations appearing in the concurrent list, states cannot do anything more than that. States have to accept it. So this is a taxing power which are specifically mentioned in the constitutions. Without these 246 schedule 7, all tax legislations will fall through. So when any tax comes, we have to first see whether it qualifies schedule 1, schedule 2, schedule 3. If it does not, if we find the tax on land is charged by the central, it will be considered as unconstitutional. Don't make a mistake. This schedule 1, schedule 2, schedule 3 is only for taxation. No, it is for everything which we see in the earth. For electricity, water, education, health, law and order, internal, external, governor, president, whatever you see, textile, everything is stated there in these 3 schedules, out of which tax is also there. So 1, 2, 3 does not mean only taxing power. If I say education, it is whose responsibility? We say states. How we say? Because it is appearing in the states list. Health, all state governments have these hospitals. Why? Previously electricity was appearing under state list. You will find every state has an electricity board. Have you asked these questions to yourself? Why states leaving everything has got the electricity board? There is no water board everywhere. Because electricity was appearing in the state list. Suresh Prabhu came. He thought country cannot run with the state self, so far power is concerned. So he changed the Electricity Act, and then it is now covered both under the central as well as the states. It is no more a state subject. So this is the constitutional part you must know, because I have been asked by the organizer to explain how this indirect system cleared, and then we will come to the GST. We will not give much time. So we know now there are 3 lists which deals with various issues, including here forest. Forest is under whom? Is it state or central? Please answer my questions. Central. So forest clearance is to be taken from central government, whereas air, pollutions, states. How we are talking all these things? Are you talking from the air? Because we have to know these are all there in the constitution. Today all states, the federal government is running very smoothly. Have you ever heard any overlapping? That state is also asking for forest clearance? No. Now, let us now talk about the tax system, how it flared. In our country, I am not talking about the central taxes, which are already there for a long period, excepting service tax in 1994. In states, we first started with the first point tax system. That means only manufacturers were required to pay tax, because government thought that it is better to catch the manufacturers so that we get complete revenue. But what happened in the process? In the process, people made some innovative areas by which to avoid tax. For example, X company manufactures refrigerators. He immediately formulated a wholly owned subsidiary. So 5,000 rupees refrigerator was transferred to his own subsidiary at 5,500 rupees and paid 10% tax, for example 550 rupees. But this refrigerator was ultimately sold at 8,000 rupees by the wholly owned subsidiary. So 5,000 minus 8,000 minus 5,000, 3,000 remained untaxed because it is a 1-point tax. So government lost revenue. So first point tax lost its significance. Then all the finance secretaries, they thought that they are IS people. They have a huge ego. My father was an IS, so I understand. They were taught in their 3 years training that you are a king. This is the lessons they get in Hyderabad. So again IS thought that sorry, this first point tax system failed. Let us go for last point tax system, so that we get the complete revenue on total value additions. So we will catch the retailers. But in our country, you will know there are millions of retailers, and the department did not have the infrastructure to catch it. So they lost further money. Whatever they are getting from the first point tax system, they even did not get the same money in the last point tax systems, although last point tax system gives the complete value additions. So last point tax system also failed. Then they came out with a multi-point tax systems. We call it MPT. So first was FPT, next was LPT, and then MPT. That every transactions there will be a tax. But this system had its inherent disadvantages. What disadvantages? Now every point there was a tax on tax and tax on same value additions. In our country, things change hand averagely 7 times. If I get this microphone, it has not just come from the manufacturer to Park Hotel. It has already changed 7 times, averagely, statistics say. So you can understand, in multi-point tax system, every time you are adding value and tax is paid on the earlier value additions also. Say 100 rupees sold at 100 rupees, tax is 10%, 110. Second person got 100 rupees, he put another 100 rupees value addition. So charge 10% tax 20, which includes previous 100 rupees value additions and tax. Now if 7 times it will go. Ultimately it was found that ultimate cost, if it is 100 rupees, 53 or 54 rupees constituted taxation system, tax, and which is totally against the consumption's norm. As a result, having 1 car or 2 cars was out of question about 20-25 years back. Having a refrigerator or AC in our house was not considered at all. Country did not expand, consumption did not expand, because your consumer surplus was very limited. You had to spend a significant amount of your surplus towards payment of tax. And as because consumptions did not expand, so as a whole economy did not expand. Our economy was in billions. automobiles in a year. And today, do you have any idea how many automobiles are manufactured per month? Can anybody sponsor? Any idea what is the total automobiles are manufactured? I am not talking two-wheelers, I am talking about four-wheelers. It is around 1,75,000 per month, and around 2 lakhs two-wheelers per month. That means 3,75,000 automobiles, two wheels or four wheels, are manufactured. Rationalizations of the taxation systems. Is it clear? And multi-point tax system stood on the way to stop the consumptions, because that was the political thinking of the then people, that consumption of more consumables is considered to be a sin. Export was considered to be the sin. We'll import materials only to the extent it is required for our survival. Why should we go for foreign technology? This is bad. We got the independence based on our Swadeshi slogan. We spin our own threads to have our own clothes. We do not want technology. With this policy, the country got independence. And all policies, industrial policies, foreign policies, financial policies were made on this line. It is only in 90s the country thought, no, this is the wrong policy. When the country had only few millions of foreign exchange reserve, only 7 days import, and IMF said, until unless you change your policy, I will not give you any further money. So country was almost default. Only 7 or 8 days deficiency. When Mr. Narasimha Rao and Mr. Manmohan Singh had gone to the IMF, they wanted money, and they were told, we are ready to help you, but you have to change your policy. And they changed the policy. They had the guts. Yes, I will go against everything, I will change the policy. That helped us basically to grow our economy, to grow our consumptions, and today you have around $2 trillion consumption, and we are expecting to improve further with 7 or 8% growth. But this has come because of rationalizations of the taxation systems, apart from the other monetary systems. So multi-point tax system also failed. So FPT, LPT, MPT all failed. Then in the year 2005, the country decided we will go for value-added tax systems. It is also another type of multi-point tax system, but the distinction is that every point there is a tax, but tax will be there only to the extent of value additions. No question of asking money on the previous value additions or tax. We all know, let us not devote any further time. Now my question is that, why we want GST? Multi-point tax system, VAT system and sin-based systems are running very smoothly. There is no major problem, excepting that reverse charge and all these related issues. Tidbits, these are there. This will also be there in the GST. Why we want our GST system. GST system is nothing but an improved version of the VAT system. It is no new logic, logic is same. But under VAT system, we have certain disadvantages. And that is basically the intention, to remove that and to come with the improved system that is called GST system. So GST is not a new model. GST is the improved model of the VAT system. What are the new problems which we are facing? We have a facing of many problems. Like many taxes are not allowed as input tax credit, both in the central segment as well as the state segments, which is adding to our cost. For example, consumables are not allowed as credit in West Bengal under VAT system, whereas in other states you have a system of getting credit. So it adds cost. You are buying several costs, spending several expenses for businesses which may not have directly connected with the manufacturer, but these are part and parcel of your cost. Say for example, business travel. These are a cost you cannot deny. Say for example, you are doing R&D, research and development, which is part and parcel of every business. If a business does not have a real R&D system, you can be sure that it is a matter of 2 or 3 years, the company is going to be closed. You have to always differentiate the product. Those who are the marketing students, they know. You have a Horlicks for women, Horlicks for baby, Horlicks for old person like me. How these are all coming? These are all differentiated technology. Today if you have only Horlicks, then you will be disgusted. Arey Horlicks kyun likha? Now whenever the advertisement comes, Horlicks for ladies, Horlicks for women, you will be. So these are all coming. Every time you have to go on improving your products. See the market, what is done, what is required, and based on that you have to keep your business ready to address the problem, for which you need R&D. But R&D has a cost. You need a raw material, you need capital goods, you need air conditioning system. You are paying taxes, excise duty, VAT. These are not allowed as credit because R&D is not directly related with the manufacturer. You are buying raw materials from outside the state. You are paying CST. It is not allowed as credit and it is adding to your cost. These are the existing problem. And today you see the industry, you see the country as a whole. These are very important statistics which you must know. In our country, the total sales, if you see 100 rupees sales, you will find 65% of the sales are located outside south, southern and eastern region. So 35% north, 30% west, 20% south, 15% east. This is the sales statistics. 35, 30, 20, 15. The states of east and south, they depend 70% of the raw material outside the state. Say for example, industries which are located in West Bengal. If you go each and every and you see their total, out of total 100 rupees inputs, they have to take at least 75 to 80 rupees inputs from outside the states. What is available in West Bengal? Excepting coal, tea and jute. Nothing is available. Whether it is a biscuit industry or whether it is a iron steel industry, this is scenario is same. Chemical industry, they have to take materials from outside the state on which they have to pay 2% CST, which is not allowed as credit. The same company, my company, has got factory in Maharashtra, has factory in Gujarat, big factory in Gujarat. There we procure only 30% of the raw material from outside the state. and 60 to 70% of the raw materials are available within the state, on which we get 100% credit. Whereas in our company, in Kolkata factory, they only get 30% credit facility on local purchases, 70% they do not get. So although it is a one company, one unit, one secretary, one managing director, one technology, but different cost structure. As because there is a different cost structure, India is not considered as one country, one market. India is considered one country, different markets. Why? Apart from the cost structure, every state has its tax legislations, and every state has its different tax legislations. Somewhere you will find maximum rate of VAT is 12.5%, somewhere you will find 13.5%, somewhere you will find 14.5%, somewhere you will find anti-tax. In Mumbai region, if you go, all factories in the Mumbai region are closed. I am not taking Maharashtra, I am talking Mumbai Municipal Corporation. 99% industries are closed, although about 30 years back you would have found all major industries in Mumbai itself. Why? There is an anti-tax ranging from 5 to 10.5%. Any material coming to the Mumbai Municipal Corporation will attract anti-tax of 5%. So you understand, the moment the material comes, the company becomes uncompetitive. So you feel that VAT system is running very effectively. But if you go into the core area, you will find it is not running effectively. You cannot say under the existing system that one country, one VAT, one market, one country, different markets. But in a developed country, in a stabilized country, there should be one concept, one country, one market. And GST is basically the answer for that. This is the number one part. Second part, you have to understand that GST, we are learning more and more about the laws, regulations, but concept is different. GST is basically consumption based tax, that is destination based tax. GST is not origin based tax. Conceptually it is totally different. We are going for a totally different system. Today you manufacture goods in West Bengal, you sell it outside the West Bengal, you charge CST. Who gets the CST? It is government of West Bengal, because goods are originated in West Bengal. So it is a origin based tax. But under GST model, West Bengal government will not get the revenue. If the goods are sold to Delhi, it is Delhi who will get the revenue, not West Bengal government, because GST is a destination based tax. That means it is the tax which will be enjoyed by the destination state where the goods are actually consumed. And that is why